Wednesday the 29th of June 2016. When I wake this morning, it's still dark. There is already movement around the camp, and there is definitely an atmosphere of excitement and anticipation. There is also nervousness in the air. You can feel it. This is it. This is the day, the long day. 84 kilometres lies between us right now and the official finish of the Big Red Run. All the kilometres logged in training, all the weights and core sessions, the funds raised and saved, the planning, 2 years of it, the last 4 days out here in the vast Simpson Desert. It all comes down to this: the ability of the body to both mentally and physically run to complete 84 kilometres. Which will be harder, the mental side or the physical side? I'm not sure, but I'd probably lean towards the mental side. No, definitely the mental side. The mind will go before the body. It usually does. There is such a variety of runner out here and the ability. We all prepare for the day ahead differently, yet we are all in it together to an extent. Some chatter, some are quiet, silently preparing for what is to come. The faster runners will be back early to mid-afternoon. We are starting at 6 a.m. before sunrise. Others will be back by sunset, others just after. Some in the evening, some late, others in the early hours of the morning. Everyone, welcome to the Running with Heart podcast. I am Andrew Neville and I am running with Heart, mission 231, as I prepare for the Sonda Monster, running the Lara Pinta Trail in support of the Heart Foundation in May 2022. This episode, it's all about the long run. I want to reflect on the long runs I've done in the past, particularly Big Red Run, where we were on the final day. We had to run 84 kilometres, Craig and myself. Also, the Team Killy fundraising event we did in December 2020, which was a 12-hour event. And then also we want to touch on some training runs we did in the lead up to Big Red, namely running to Mount Victoria from Portland in New South Wales and also running to Bathurst. Why the long run this week? Because today, Craig and myself completed the longest run of our training program. It's my longest training run ever, 8 hours today out on the trails. It was a long day, but enjoyable, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. But meanwhile, let's return to the long day. I'm reading from a running journal back from 2016. We're at Big Red Run, and we're getting ready to start our long day, 84 kilometres. Craig and myself, our goal has always been 15 hours. That's 9 p.m. finish. That is, until we stood at the start line. My morning ritual I kept the same as any other morning out here. Wake, a morning prayer, then wander out to the eating area for breakfast. Sticking to what has been working both in training and out here in the desert. Now is not the time to change anything. Then it's back to the tent to get dressed into my running gear and shoes. Then the portaloo. Amongst this, I've also cleaned my teeth at the gallon drum, and also made sure my duffel bag is packed with all my stuff. While we're out running today, our gear will be transported to the new campsite for tonight. By the time we arrive there, the dedicated team of volunteers will have our tent already set up with our gear bags waiting out the front. Back to the portaloo. It seems out here in the desert, this is the place where each morning I have thought about the day ahead and what our race strategy should be, usually changing it from our original plan. Today would be no different. Before gathering at the start line for the final time, excluding tomorrow's unofficial run into Birdsville, we once again have to get the satellite trackers attached to our packs. This morning too, we've had to be dressed in our high-vis vests and head torch before we're allowed to begin. This gear can be taken off following sunrise, but for runners who are still out there running after sunset tonight, they have to have both the vest and head torch back on. As we all stand together at the start line in the dark, head torches switched on, the atmosphere is filled with both anticipation and excitement. The unknown lies before us, 84 kilometres through the Simpson Desert, the first hour or so in the dark. Some runners may not make it. Others will be fast. Some will be slow, coming into camp in the early hours of tomorrow morning. Others will be perhaps experience hell out there today. And yet others, pure joy. It's all an unknown at this point. Moments before 6 a.m. We are ready. Someone asked which direction we are heading out. Through the camp? Greg Donovan, the race director, admits he doesn't know. As I wasn't here yesterday, is the excuse given. Craig and myself are on the start line. We are ready for this. For whatever the day is about to bring, we are ready. I turn to Craig. We're coming home before dark. That gives us less than 12 hours. The gun goes off and we're away into the darkness, off into the desert and the morning, only bobbing headlights leading the way. The group of runners head into the darkness and the desert filled with excitement. It is quite an adventure running in the Simpson Desert pre-dawn. Definitely not something you get to do every day. Despite the excitement, there is definitely a feeling of nervousness in the running atmosphere. There is 84 kilometres in front of us, and that, for many, is an unknown. Some, perhaps most, have never run that far in one day. Craig and myself haven't, but with our training that we have done, we feel we are well prepared for this. Physically, we'll be right, I believe. I think mentally it will be tougher. It is with this thought that I approach today ahead with a breakdown of my usual Wednesday morning at the gym. I feel this is going to help me break down the mental barrier of knowing I have at least 12 hours of running in front of me. And that's the thing when you approach a long run, whether it be in training or the race, it's how you approach it mentally and how you break it down to make what appears, I guess, on paper or on the clock seem a long time. And so that day, I remember in the Simpson Desert, my morning routine, I guess, at the gym at that time was, personal training 6 o'clock, personal training 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, a class at 10:30, personal training after that 11:30. So I was able to break down at each of those hour marks, I guess. Okay, at this point, I would be usually doing this client. Then an hour later, I'd be doing this client. So instead of suddenly having potentially 12 plus hours in front of you, you're just taking an hour at a time. It's similar when you're starting out in running. They say, run to the driveway or the next lamp post, and then run to the corner, and you slowly extend it and extend it. And so from what originally, a kilometre might have seemed a long time, you've broken it down into maybe 50-metre lots or 100-metre lots, which makes it more doable and achievable, both physically but especially mentally. That day in the desert was an unbelievable experience. Really, really good experience. And the training we'd done had set us in good stead for it. I remember a few things that pop out, and Craig and myself often reflect on that day in the desert, the 84 kilometres especially, was running through this open gibber plain, which was just before the halfway point of the 84K, so we're about to complete a marathon. And you could see what we thought was a house in the distance. It was a mirage, I guess, in a way. As we got closer, it turned out it was the finish line of the Little Red Run, which finished at that 42-kilometre mark. And they had a checkpoint set up where we got to eat fruit cake and lollies and whatever else they had in the smorgasbord for us. Then we turned on a road and went up over a hill and into a valley in the desert, which was covered in wildflowers, and it was just beautiful, incredible sights. We stopped after this long straight bit of line. Actually, I should mention, Craig would want me to mention this. We actually ran along the South Australian border, where Queensland and South Australia meet. And it was a fence, just your typical farm fence. And the sand dunes, or the road over the sand dunes, I should say, that ran along this fence, just kept going and going. And I remember we go, this must be the last one. This must be the last one. And then there'd be another one. And you'd rise to the top of it and you'd see another one. And you'd go down and you'd come up and rise on the crest and then be another one. And Craig could probably tell you exactly how many there were. I'm going to say there was 8. But there was a lot. I do remember ducking in the gate as well. So I could say I was in South Australia. I remember stopping for lunch. Again, another checkpoint, and we sent a drop bag to there with our dehydrated meals, spaghetti bolognese I had. And then we're into a gibber plain. And you came into the gibber plain. So the gibber plain's just small red rocks. And it didn't look that far across. And I thought, this is good. This looks okay. What we didn't know is the markers they'd set out weaved its way down the Giver Plain. And so it was actually 10 kilometres on this Giver Plain. And by this stage, I think we'd done about 56 Ks. Coming towards camp, you could see it in the distance, and it was slowly getting closer, and we're running towards it. It was over to our right, diagonally, in front of us. And on the left, you could see the sun slowly setting. And as I said, I made that decision in the Portaloo that we're going to come in before sunset, which made it just before 6 o'clock, instead of the 9 o'clock that we'd originally planned. And we did that. We achieved that. We came in, I think, 11 hours 38. And Craig brings it up all the time on our training runs now. The look on my wife's face as we came in, that she was more excited than we were that we'd finished. And he says he'll never forget that to the day he dies, the excitement Monique showed on her face as we crossed the finish line. But yeah, really good experience out there on the long run. And it's a good old saying that you get out what you put in, and we'd certainly put in the training for it, and we reaped the rewards that we're able to finish it in that under 12-hour time. In preparation for the big red run, we did do the 2 runs to Bathurst and Mount Vic. Mount Vic was I've got it here in front of me, 4 hours 58 minutes, and we covered 47.5 Ks in that time. And it was a wet, cold day. We did that, what's it say here? That was on the 24th of April in 2016. So about a month or 2 months. 2 months before Big Red Run. And we ran from Portland into Lithgow, up over Hassans Wall, nice little climb, down into Hartley, through the back roads of Hartley, and then we went up Mount Vic to the side of the main highway, not up the Great Western Highway, Begoffer's Pass, and we were met by Craig's dad at the service station, who brought us back to Portland. The week later, on the Sunday, we ran to Bathurst. Now, that was the day of the Bathurst 10K run, which we had people from Ant Fitness participating in. So our goal was to actually get there by the end of the race to get our lift home with our mate Mal, who was running in the race. So we had a time frame we had to be there by, so we didn't miss our lift. And I remember we stood out. So for that run, 51.5 Ks to Bathurst. And at the time, that would have been our longest training run, and 5 hours and 2 minutes. It was just incredible, that run. And we, again, often talk about it. We stood out the front. We would have left about 4 o'clock, maybe 5 o'clock, 4:30. We stood out in front of my place, looking at Craig's phone and the weather map, and the weather radar, and there was this storm coming. And we stood there and discussed, should we go, should we not? What the heck, we've got to go. We've got to get this run in. And no sooner as we headed off, it bucketed down, and we went up over Garland's Hill outside of Portland, and the rain was blowing sideways. It was like a mini cyclone. It was torrential. We were drenched. It's pitch black. We had our head torches. It was pitch black. And we pushed on. We were determined to get there, and we came down over Garland's. We turned right to go through Sunny Corner. And in a little ditch or gully there going across where the road goes, the water was flowing across up to our ankles, maybe even higher. And our feet were drenched. By the time we got round through Sunny Corner and to the highway just below Yetholm, when we came out onto the Great Western Highway at Kirkconnell, the rain had eased for the first time. That was about the 21K mark from memory, so it's probably taken us 2.5 hours to get to there. So 2.5 hours of storm and torrential rain and heavy wind to get to there. And then, as usually the case, you come in over the hill towards Bathurst, and the sky opens up and it's blue skies. And it was beautiful running to Bathurst, and really good achievement to run from Portland to Bathurst. And that actually led into what we called our Little Red Run week. So after that, each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we ran half marathons, trying to replicate Big Red Run, which was going to be full marathons on those days. Then we finished with a shorter run on the Friday. But yeah, really good week. And as I said, you take out what you put in, and we were willing to put in the effort and the time to those runs to make sure Big Red Run was a success. And that's what I'm doing now. That Craig's running with me at the moment with our training, and I really appreciate Craig's training with me. And today we headed out for an 8-hour run, which, as I said, is my longest training run ever. And we met in Wallerawang this morning, headed off just after 7, and headed out through Lidsdale, and we went up, I've forgotten the name already, Beecroft, I think it was, Beecroft Trail. Massive climb, straight up side of the mountain and did a loop up the top there. But the views were amazing, absolutely incredible. Looking back over Lidsdale and Willerowang, just amazing the mountains. And then once we did that loop, we came down onto Walgan Road again. And our original plan had been to go back to the cars in Wang, and then run over the mountain range between Wang and Portland. Meet Monique for a checkpoint, a serious checkpoint, because we had stuff in the cars as well, change of clothes, change of shoes, whatever we might need, extra drink, smorgasbord of food, and then run through the mountain range to Portland, meet Monique for another smorgasbord of food, a buffet of checkpoint food, and then run back over the mountain range back to Wayne to finish off the 8 hours. As we came onto Walgan Road, we thought, change of plan. We probably got down there probably an hour earlier than we expected. And so we turned right and actually went through the mountain range across the Castlereagh Highway, because we'd never been that way before. And again, spectacular country, and the views were amazing. Check out the vlog that will be up on the Running with Heart YouTube channel. Just spectacular views out towards Benbullen and Gardens of Stone National Park and Cullenbullen, and then across to Willerowang as well. Once more, the power station, I should say, Mount Piper Power Station. And once we got to the Castlereagh Highway, we popped across it into Boulder Road and decided to run the motorbike track that runs next to Boulder Road, which, not in hindsight, was a mistake. It's what we needed. It was more hilly, some steep accents there, and the legs, which were really feeling good at that point, probably started to feel a bit of fatigue. And so at 6 hours, or just short of 6 hours, we met Monique on the Kookaburra track, where she met us with, we had cups of noodles. She topped up our fluids, checked what we'd been eating, and made sure we were stocked up for our run back over the mountain range to Wang, because we had 2 hours to complete, and sent us on our way after 15 minutes, or 17 minutes. Our aim was 15 minutes. We headed off after 17, which was pretty good. And so we had 2 hours to complete, and that final 2 hours climbing those mountains between Portland and Wang, I'll be honest, it was tough. We had to earn every kilometre, earn every minute, work hard, but we got there. And real sense of achievement and satisfaction in completing the 8-hour run. And especially, I guess, when I look back again with my anxiety journey over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, if you told me 6 months ago that, in August I would be running 8 hours, no way at all. And it helps having Craig there pushing me along, so I really appreciate that. And we first did that mountain range between Wang and Portland when we were training for Team Keeley, and at the 12-hour fundraising event held in December. And that 12-hour day, or 12-hour event, we went in with not as much preparation as you usually would for a 12-hour. And that was being held in the foundations in Portland. But again, we set up with the checkpoint, probably halfway around the track. So we're running, I think it was about a 3.5K loop for that, for the 12 hours. So we had the checkpoint set up with food and drink. And again, it's a mental preparation. You can read lots when it comes to the long run and the correct way to do it. And I think it's a very personal thing, what suits, what works, what doesn't. Some people will say don't run past 4-hour mark or 5-hour mark, with the recovery that's required from that. Not detrimental to the body, but can affect that training. Others, like the program we're following at the moment, has go to 8 hours. Some people suggest that if you can run 50 hours, after 50 hours, the rest is just mental training. It becomes a mental battle. And probably after doing today's run and doing the 12-hour too, I'll throw that in there with Team Keeley, we had the motivation of the cause for Team Keeley, and it makes such a difference when you're running for a why and a cause that you believe in that's close to your heart, and that was the case with Team Keeley. So it was easy. I had a moment or a few hours during that run, the 12-hour event, where I was crook in the stomach and didn't know, I couldn't hold any food down. And I didn't know whether I was going to actually get through the event, but knowing you were doing it for Team Keeley, that urged you on and you persisted. And I think I walked probably 2 hours and then came good and was able to finish the event. Craig ran 91 Ks, I believe, that day. I think I did 78. So a lot of distance. And then for today, it comes back to mission 231 and running with heart. When the going gets tough, you just keep going. It would have been so easy at that checkpoint with Monique over in the Kookaburra Trail to sat down in the gutter and had the noodles and had some Gatorade, and it was hot. I think it was sitting around 14, 15 degrees maybe, and we were in the sun obviously most of the run. And so I think if there'd been a ticket out, you would, not that you'd take it, but you'd consider it, because the legs were starting to feel heavy, the stomach maybe a bit off. Probably our nutrition wasn't as good for that first 6 hours, maybe not eating enough. And Monique gave some encouraging words of motivation and sort of pushed us off on our way. And off we went. And the hard slog up the Kookaburra Mountain, straight up from the Kookaburra track, and then into the ups and downs across the mountain range to get to Wayne. But you just keep pushing because you know that you've got to. It's part of Mission 231. If I'm serious about completing it, or giving a good shake-up, or a good chance of completing it, you got to do it. You got to suffer in the training. Tonight I'm tired after the run, without a doubt. My legs are heavy, but probably not as bad as I thought they'd be. But all in all, I think it'll be interesting what the recovery's like, whether the lack of nutrition early on in the run will affect the recovery, make it a bit slower maybe. But then I look at it and I go, okay, so the 100Ks is the next one. I'm hoping to do 100Ks in about a month's time. So we covered Craig and myself 54Ks today in the 8 hours. So you then start to think, okay, there's another 46Ks to knock over to get to that 100, in building towards the 231. And you do start to question, are you ready? Can you do it? Are you capable of doing 100Ks? Are you capable of doing 231? And it's just that slow progress. Again, back to that analogy of the light post when you're starting out running. And we've all been there. We ran 8 hours today, but we at one point started running. And it might have been, we all start differently. It might have been a kilometre with our first run. It might have been 50 metres. It might have been 5Ks. But again, you just got to break the whole training program down, the long runs down. So, 3 weeks ago, it was 6 hours we did. And probably how we felt today at 7.5 hours is how we felt at 6 hours 3 weeks ago, if that makes sense. Which shows that we're progressing, we're improving with each of the longer runs. And that's what you're looking for, those small improvements. So right now, on the 14th of August, I can sit here and I can be asked, Andrew, can you run 231 kilometres in May next year? And I'd probably look you in the face and go, no, not at the moment. But by doing the long runs in training regularly, consistently, and being committed to it, and committing to the pain and the suffering that you do go through out there, you know what? Yeah, I will. I'll give it a good shake next year in May if I do the training, if I do the long runs. And the long runs are the staple of the training. They're the runs you can't afford to miss. It's the time on the feet. It's the muscles learning to be under fatigue. But most of all, it's the mind being mentally strong. And again, learnt that today in that 8 hour run, that you just have to get that mind in the right spot. And I think that, the people that say if you run 50Ks, the rest becomes mental training. I think it's true. The mind, and I've read that in my book, in that running journal with the big red run 84K day, the mind goes before the body physically because it wants to save that part of its self-preservation, I guess. It makes sure you've got something left in the tank in case you need it. And so it's pushing yourself to that limit and finding your limit, and probably finding that the limit you actually self-impose on yourself is actually not your limit. You can actually go a bit further. And so the long run is important both physically and mentally in the preparation for Mission 231. It's important for any event, whether you're doing a half marathon, a 10K, a 5K, a marathon. It doesn't matter what distance. A long run, as I said, is a staple of the training program. But it's where your most your advancement is made in your training, both physically and mentally. What do you think about out there on the long run? For example, look, it's really good to run with someone. Like, I'm so lucky to have a running buddy in Craig to do those 8 hour runs with. Like, out there on your own for 8 hours, wow. Your mind would go to many places. But look, we just chatter, just talk about anything from not politics, but the latest news, which at the moment is COVID, sport, jokes. That's becoming a regular occurrence. The jokes. We talk about past running, races, training programs, life in general. And it's amazing how quick the time goes. Today, the 8 hours flew by. And it makes a difference if you're enjoying what you're doing and you're doing it with someone you enjoy doing it with. So, again, a shout out to Craig. I appreciate him being there for the support and helping me get through my 8 hours today. And Monique being there as well on the checkpoint and giving me the push that needed. Monique knows me well and she knows when I need the push to keep going and get my head in the right spot. So, really appreciate it. Okay, leading into the 8 hour run, it was a fairly quiet week on the training front. It was basically a taper, so just a 30-minute run and two 45-minute runs this week, which is really nice to let the body have a bit of recovery after last week's big week of 2,000 meters elevation. Achieved that, and over 11 hours of running, I think, or 11 hours of training. So it was good to have a quieter week leading into the 8 hours today. Tomorrow is a day off from running, so looking forward to that as well. We'll probably go for a walk, stretch out the legs, keeping within the local government area, obviously being in lockdown now. And it's about keeping moving. You know, you can wake up tomorrow morning after a long run, especially, and you know the whole body's stiff and sore. The worst thing you can do is sit still. You got to get out, move around, get the muscles moving, and keep them as loose as possible. And then I'll probably do a 45-minute stretch tomorrow as well, just to target those tight spots in the muscle. On the fundraising front, we are so close to $2,000. We possibly could be unofficially past it. I've got a bit of banking I've got to do there for the Heart Foundation, so we could be very close to $2,000. So thank you everyone for your support, for the donations. Again, the skipping 231 challenge, it's just going off through the roof. It's incredible, and thank you again for the support. At the moment, right now, we have, I believe, 26 people officially skipping. Obviously not right this very moment, but 26 people signed up and have started the 4-week challenge. And I believe we've got possibly 15 in the process of going through the sign-up process. So potentially within the next 24, 48 hours, we could be looking at over 40 people skipping, which is just incredible. We want to get people active. We want to get people moving. As I've said in some of the vlogs, that nearly 80% of Australians don't do enough physical activity. So to have over 40 people taking part in a skipping challenge 3 times a week is awesome. You can sign up at any time. Okay, the skipping challenge is running from now right through until May, when the Sonda Monster is on and the Mission 231 comes to the conclusion, we hope. I'll put the details in the show notes, so if you want to sign up, you can go to the fundraising page and sign up. You get a Heart Foundation skipping rope when you sign up as well. And if you complete the 4-week challenge, skipping 3 times a week, 231 jumps, you'll also get a Heart Foundation Momento to acknowledge your achievement. I think that covers everything we want to talk about. Just want to share some of the long run memories and stories with you. We could talk about long runs all day, and we're going to go into some details about some questions I'm getting about my training and what happens out there on the long run, what I think about. That'll be a whole nother podcast on another day. But I hope you enjoyed the insight into the long run. Make sure that you keep exercising, and whatever you do, make sure you're doing it with heart, everyone. Thanks for the support.